47 audit queries. Just give us a summary of each audit query and what the county has done so far, so that it will guide me in determining which query the committee can look at in detail. Let's start with the first one, unconfirmed cash and cash equivalent balance.
Chair, we discussed the issue, but the element of the variance between the cash book balance, the cash book showing a nil balance, and the statement reflecting a balance of 47 million, that bit was not explained.
Position that is a committee should look at this.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll consider that as our query number one. Members. Okay, go to the second one.
Unconfirmed bursary award. We still haven't received a detailed list of all bursary applicants, the criteria that was used to confirm vulnerability, and the list of those who are awarded the bursaries. Yeah. The issue that we feel that the committee should give a way forward is the 5% of the administration expenses, which is over and above the required 3%.
I think that is a matter that we can give interim recommendation.
Yes.
Because it went up by 2%. Budget control and performance.
The issue was the high percentage of the funds that were not issued to needy students, which was 42%.
Again, I'm being advised this we can give interim recommendation. So lack of public participation, again, that's interim recommendation. Irregular appointment and composition of ward bursary committees.
Yeah.
Can you give us a brief?
Under the appointment of ward bursary committee, there was an extra appointment of 2 members to subcommittees, which we felt had no legislation.
You felt?
There was no support, legal support.
So there was an additional 2 members
to sub-ward committees.
So maybe members, we can check on that.
Chair, I wanted to give a proposal. If you add when the governor was speaking, giving his opening remarks, he basically gave that already they have corrected any issues that have been there. So if there is something that he has done, as part of our recommendation, we just put the recommendation instead of going through the governor mentioned.
So you are suggesting this one we give a recommendation?
Yes.
But Chair, it's good to counter-check with the concern, rather than just taking governor's opening remarks. We need to compare whether, yes, this was there, and he already, dealt with it.
So maybe, Governor, you can make your comment on this so that members can be guided.
I can start with the committee one. Can I start with the committee one?
Yes, a committee.
If you look at page 589 onwards in this document, that's where the concern is. The regulations require that members should be 7, but you can see at the point when the ward committees, and that is annexure 6A onwards, they appear to have been more than 7. So to sort out this issue, Chairman, on Appendix 6D, on page 744, I appointed a legal committee to review the legislation. We have the regulations already undergoing public participation in terms of composition, in terms of even the query on scholarship. We realized that the scholarship was not defined. The query on scholarship, query 8, scholarship was not defined under these regulations. So when we came to office, Mr. Chairman, we have, and members, we have defined the composition properly. We have defined scholarship properly, and we have also introduced in these guidelines, and we can even demonstrate that we have uploaded even the names on the website. We upload the names on the website so that names are accessible in advance. So the question as to whether there was public participation is now addressed by ensuring that before bursaries are issued, the names are put in a public place so that then members can have an input. And in this particular financial year, Mr. Chairman, we received complaints, which complaints were addressed as a result of making sure the public can get in advance, because it is it's a very dicey line. I can tell you, when I was given a list of bursaries and scholarship, one reads very needy, the other one reads extremely needy, the other one reads extremely, extremely needy. So and then you have to pick one. It becomes a very difficult task for the executive to pick extremely, extremely needy, or very, very needy, or needy, needy, or orphan, unless the public have an input in it. And I have seen some good progress by ensuring that we have this public. But in my own estimation, number 1 to 4 are all needy. But then we pick the most vulnerable. I must also confess that, of course, by making sure that this matter is public, we have then found those people who wanted to bend the rules, and we have found them. And action has been taken. Thank you. On the question of the accounts, payables, this one.
No, I just wanted you to answer on that particular one.
Which one?
The composition and appointment of the board.
Yes,
the
yes.
committee. Yeah.
Yes, that we have addressed.
Yes.
By ensuring then the legislation is very clear
Okay.
on the word public participation.
Okay, the clerk is advising that we have an issue there on the regulations that you have attached there, because they are made pursuant to the PFM Act 2012.
Yes, Chairman, at the beginning I mentioned this issue,
Yes.
that the ideal situation would be to have an act, then regulations.
Yeah.
Now, proper legal advice means in the absence of an act, you fall back to county, to national legislation.
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, we have, of course, used the PFM, and then, of course, the solution is eventually have an act like the CRF fund, County Administration Fund, which is an act, the emergency fund, which is an act, but this particular one doesn't have an act. But on the face of it, prima facie, it's not an illegality, it's just not properly organized.
Yeah. So maybe the clerk, you can tell us what issue you having with the regulations.
I think, Chair, our legal can comment, because under 116, CCMs don't have powers to make regulations under the PFM, but she can read for us and then make comments.
Okay.
Legal?
Chair, that is the position. Section 116 gives the power to establish the county public funds, and the power is given to the CC to publish with the approval of the county assembly. So the mode of establishment now is legislation of the county. The risk of establishing regulations under PFM is national legislation, meaning that the Statutory Instruments Act applies to that particular regulation. So to that extent, those regulations would ideally have to be tabled before Parliament rather than the County Assembly. That's why it's better to have the regulations done under county legislation, so that once the regulations are done, then it is tabled before the County Assembly. Thank you, Chair.
No, Governor is a lawyer. I can see he's going through the Constitution. We have faced the same problem with other counties as well, where they have done regulation pursuant to the PFM Act, and we have given direction. Senator Olekina.
Maybe the best way is to direct the governor, who is a very good, competent lawyer, to PFM Section 116. I think anything to do, and you're aware that the PFM, they are county government regulations, which is separate. And that is why the legal counsel is suggesting that we only focus on developing own regulations based on county legislation that is passed. Yeah, you know, it's only the cabinet secretary who, in charge of finance, who can develop PFM regulations. You know?
Article 207. That's of course all of us have been a legislator and you're legislators, but that's the confusion is caused by 207.4, and part of legal practice and I learn is to learn from everybody, including the good lawyer of this committee. The Constitution reads as follows: an Act of Parliament may make further provision for withdrawal of funds from a county revenue fund. B reads, provide for the establishment of other funds by counties and the management of those funds. That act under that article of the Constitution is a PFM. So the Constitution recognizes that you can create a fund under PFM for counties. I just said a neater way. What you're saying is the ideal way would have been to have like a county administration fund, county emergency fund act, County Bursary Fund Act, and then regulations. But on the face of it, from these provisions, it's not illegality.
Let me just maybe assist the governor here. The problem is the limitation set by the PFM Act. So unless we amend the PFM Act to comply with the Constitution, right now we are limited. Yeah, because if you read the PFM Act, it talks about who has got the powers to establish regulations, which is the cabinet secretary. Yeah, that's the problem. And there's always that disconnect between the Constitution and acts of parliaments. One other big problem you're going to face is with the new FIF fund. The new FIF fund sets up the CC in charge of health as the head of that fund. You know, and you know very well that it's only the CC in charge of finance who is sort of like, who has got the extra powers. So you'll find that conflict between your CC finance and your CC health, because CC health would want to have the autonomy of controlling that fund. In fact, I'm bringing in an amendment to be able to correct that, because the problem was that we were being rushed to pass that piece of legislation. So we have to comply with the law and what it says.
Can I read so that we are clear? 116 of the PFM reads as follows: a county executive member for finance may establish other public funds with the approval of the county executive committee and the county assembly. Under 9 of all the things that are under that fund is the regulations may provide. Remember, it reads county executive at the beginning and it continues. So the same county executive may make regulations for the provision, establishment, management, operation, or winding up of county public funds under this section. So there is a conflict, I agree, Senator Ledama, but is reading, so the golden rule of interpretation is you interpret all legislation in the simplest term unless it causes an absurdity. So that is the absurdity that is not an illegality.
Chair, with your kind permission,
Yes,
I want to.
You are also a lawyer.
Yes,
but, let's not turn this into a.
Yeah. You know, you know how it flows. One of the, I think your clerk mentioned the statutory instrument, like your legal counsel. You see, for any delegated legislation must follow then squarely under statutory instrument.
The bursaries processed in the year under review were for 2 financial years, that is 2021 and 2022. Processing of the bursaries was done twofold, beginning with the year 2020-21. Then the process for the year under review began, causing most checks to be unpresented at the end of the year. We have attached a check register showing the beneficiaries and issuance details. That is Appendix 1A. A complete bank statement, extract January to December, Appendix 1B, showing the checks that were clearing at the end of the financial year. The physical checks had been disbursed to the beneficiary schools and were not available for audit review because we had normally addressed them to the schools. However, sample of checks, counterfoils in relation to the unpresented checks are in Appendix 1C, page 148, and a list of the unpresented checks of 47,330,439 is provided in 1D, page 149. The cash book had a nil balance since all the checks had already been issued, an amount credited in the cash book. A bank reconciliation statement showing the unpresented checks, reconciling the nil cash book balance and bank balance of Kenya shillings 47,330,439 shillings was also attached, is at page 182. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Auditor, your comments on the management response?
Information. We verified the information that was given, but the issue, as I said earlier, is we wanted an explanation as to why the financial statements are showing a cash and cash equivalents balance of 47,330,439, while the cash book was showing a nil balance.
Yeah, but if you read the response, I think maybe you can comment on the last paragraph. Auditor, he says the cash book had a nil balance since all the checks had already been issued and the amount credited in the cash book. A bank reconciliation statement showing the unpresented checks reconciling the nil cash book balance and bank balance of 47 million is shown in Appendix 1E.
Chair, the requirement is that the financial statements should reflect a cash book balance and not the bank balance.
Okay, I come back to you, Governor, before I ask members to comment. Yeah. Proceed, Governor.
Chairman, it's good that we had to study accounts to qualify to become lawyers. So I noticed that issue. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, we will in future ensure that that tallies, because what it means in the cash book is cash in, cash out. So if it's been issued, it should reflect on the other side so that you have the balances. So it's a technical issue, technical financial issue, That's why we brought the managers here, so that they can make sure that we don't have that discrepancy. But from a really layman's perspective, when you look at the statements, continuous statements, and how they were presented, then you don't see that the balances, and neither is any money lost. Thank you.
Okay, maybe CEC Finance through the governor, you can comment on this.
Thank you, members. I think what Governor has said is we note that anomaly that came out when we were. It was, yes, a cash book balance is what should have been given, and we are guided by the auditor. Chair, we note, and this to be corrected if there are prior year adjustments for the accounting that is coming. Chair, with the collaboration of auditors, it will be done. Chair, to rectify this anomaly. Thank you.
Chair.
Senator Thangu.
Thank you very much, Chair. When I read the management response, the physical checks had been disbursed to the beneficiary schools and were not available for audit review. I don't know, maybe this question goes to the auditor. When you're doing auditing, do you look for physical checks? You know, because I believe when you're coming to do that job, they already have been disbursed, they have already gone. So what exactly do you look for? Question number 2, as you answer that one, is that I think now that the governor has said that all the checks now were cashed, so I think the best thing to look for is now the bank statement. Yeah, just to see whether everything went as provided for.
Any other member? Senator Kisang.
Hey, Chair, I wanted to find out from the auditor. Even with the checks would have gone to the institutions, but the countervoid, the smaller would have remained, and you would have checked that this would have gone to each institution. How come you didn't verify with the countervoid checks?
Yeah. Maybe
Mr. Ladama, and then I think the CEC through the governor will respond.
Now, there are a couple of issues that the auditors have raised here. And I think, Governor, it's important to pay. One, there's an issue of unpresented checks. And the auditor has just said unpresented checks payable to various institutions amounting to 47 million. They needed one supporting documentation. Why is it that the students did not present those checks to the institution? That I've not had you guys respond to that query. That is issue number 1. And then number 2, it says that, so there's an issue of supporting evidence. You know, and the way you support evidence is very simple. In accounting, it's a very simple, it's 1 + 1. You do your monthly reconciliation, and you do your cash balances in terms of the bank, and you indicate these have not been presented, and you're able to submit them, indicating clearly each check. That issue is not being addressed here. Number 2, and that is what the governor, that's what the auditors are saying. We wanted that to be able to carry out our audit properly and say, we have confirmed that the following checks, 1 to 50, have not been submitted. So that means it now raises another query. When those checks have not been submitted for payment, that money is there. So it raises the issue of that now, what do we do with that money? Now, that's number 2. And then that's what I want to understand. The next issue was this issue of the cash book revealing nil. How can a cash book reveal nil, yet there are checks that have not been presented for payments? That is the issue. It is an issue of reconciliation. Look at it from an accounting point of view. And I'm sure we have accountants here. Look at it from an accounting point of view. And I want to demystify it even further. Okay, let me break it down for you. You have 1,000 shillings. You issue out 5 checks of 200 shillings. At the end of the financial year, those checks have not been presented for payment, but your cash book is showing nil, zero. How will that happen? You still have that money has not left. So if you can address that issue that the auditors are raising, then this matter can be considered as having dealt with. But as far as we're concerned, your answer is not satisfactory.
Damaris?
Chair, can I explain? Thank you. Member Senator has said it very well. If you've issued checks and they have not been cleared and the money is still in the bank, the cash book will be nil, but the bank balance will show the money that is in the bank as a bank balance because the checks are unpresented. You said it well, but where it comes in, the cash book will be zero, the bank balance will show because the money has not yet cleared.
No. Just on a point of order. And auditors, maybe we can speak the same language here. The only time the cash book will show as nil is when that money has actually left your account. The way you're reconciling, auditors, am I right on this issue? The only way the cash book will show as nil. And let me tell you, Governor, this creates a loophole for corrupt individuals to take the money away. Because then we are not comparing apples to apples. We are saying as far as our financial statement is concerned, this money has already been expensed out. But the bank account has got nil. So when you roll it over to the next financial year, you can then now figure out this money, unless we rebudget for this money, how is this money going to be accounted for it? That is my issue.
No, but the bank balance is not zero. The bank balance actually shows the unpresented checks.
Chair, I'm not an accountant, I'm an IT fellow, but I learned a bit of accounts. I just wanted to say something in the while. What happens? Because already checks have been issued, the cash book is zero, but you have the 47 million, but it is committed. You don't know when these people will present the checks in the bank. So what do we say there? Yeah, I hope your CC is an accountant.
Yeah, she is an accountant.
But I didn't hear mentioning CPA something.
Maybe before CEC you come in, the auditors want to comment on that.
Can I comment, Chair? If you see what the issue that was raised is that it is possible you could have your cash book showing the nil because you have written checks which you have not presented for payment. But remember what the county didn't do, they never either gave those counterfiles or even the physical check if they were just on the drawer waiting to be taken to the beneficiary. So we are not sure where this balance now is coming from because it is simple. If it is true you have written all the checks, your cash book have gone to zero, then either you have counterfiles because you have already dispatched the checks to the beneficiary, or you have the physical check because maybe they were written yesterday and they have not been dispatched to the beneficiary. Without that, then we're raising the issue. How then can we say the balance of cash nil is actually the correct position? So it's the issue of reconciliation and the supporting documents.
So Damaris, your comment.
Yes, Chair, thank you. And members, yes, at that point, members, the documents were not presented, but we have attached on page 145 the check counterfoils, just a sample because there were many. And members, through the chair, we have attached the list of the students who we had awarded bursaries, and the bank indicates when those checks were clearing in the subsequent days. So we actually have also attached, Chair, with your permission, schools where they were going and they have acknowledged later in the year, and the checks kept clearing, and the auditors would confirm with the that they have
Chair, just on a point of order. You know, I've worked with Governor Mutula, and he's extremely diligent. Your CC, are you the CC or CO? CC, my dear, what you're saying is not right. We want Governor Mutula to get an unqualified opinion. When you read Section 31 of the Public Audit Act, it gives you 14 days to be able to have that discussion you're having now with those auditors. When the auditors raise the query, when they give you the draft management letter, they give you a 14-day window for you to tell them that this is what is clearing, subsequently in the year. Hypothetically, if you issued all your checks in June, by the time the auditors are coming to carry out an audit is normally September, correct? September or October. Within these 3 months, surely. And then even after that, look at when we are coming now. That 14-day period, and that 14-day period will probably come to you in January. Is it January when they give the draft? Or when did you issue the draft management letter? February. So really what you're saying, I don't believe it. Because you had from June, or is it a calendar year? It's a calendar year? Or is it a financial year?
Financial year.
It's a financial year. That's exactly what I'm saying. From July 1st to February, my dear, that thing you would have corrected. So I'm not really buying your argument. I think you need to look at it properly and say, there was, maybe your CEO did not do what they're supposed to have done. So that subsequently, when we go to other years, you know what to look for. You know the time period. In fact, Governor, I want you to be attending the entry interview with the auditors and the closing interview with the auditors. So you could fully understand the scope of the audit. How long is it taking for them to be able to audit this thing? Otherwise, you'll be misled by your officers.
I just want to qualify that at the time when the management letter was issued, I was campaigning. I was not in office, so that was June. And by the time Damaris gets into office is November of 2022. And you can see this was running continuously. Senator Ledama, if you look at the state bank statement, January to December, you see how it was running continuously. These checks were being presented continuously. Even the day before election, it continued. Because although the calendar year ended on 30th, they continued doing these presentations. And again, I say because of the way the school calendar was going. That is the only explanation I can give. That, and to answer the question by the member about money being lost, we have checked. No money was lost. Checks were presented. The information could not have possibly, there's so many entries, possibly the counterfoils were not shown to the editors in its entirety. The list is there, the acknowledgements are there, but if you look at the statements running up to December, this would have been really a truckload. We sampled them to demonstrate, one, the counterfoils are available. We have demonstrated, two, the list is available, and three, the schools where this money was going is also shown. Three, lastly, the checks are issued in this format. If there are certain, if it's Monica's, for example, we issue one check for 10 students. And therefore then, as the students report, then the schools then present the checks. So there's obviously a problem which we need to address with the auditor in terms of what they require from us in relation to the end of the financial year. But schools are running on a different calendar from the financial year, and I think that is something that I've picked that can be addressed. And thank you for the compliment of diligence.
Yeah, just hold on. I just need one clarification from the governor. You have said something, and this is a house of records, so I just want to be clear. Checks were being given out even during campaigns, like the day before the elections. Now the question, clearing, very good. I'm glad you clarified that. When were they dated? That you need to check when they were dated, because if they were dated anywhere July 1st and above, then they fall into the next financial year. This is accrual, but it's still, even if it's accrual, it's still the next financial year, correct? Auditor?
Yes.
So can you check when the dates were issued? So that, I know you're not there, you're campaigning, but can you just check so that we can be clear when exactly, how to record, to reconcile the two? Is it for that financial year or the other financial year?
That's the reason I've mentioned that my own reading from what the records that we have managed to extract is that is what happened, and therefore we'll reconcile the figures. We were checking the lists, and we can tell that the checks that were due, and you can see the draft. checks, the statement shows checks were issued from February throughout the year, and the draft statements are here. And you can see when they were collected, when they were being presented, they were presented nearly on a continuous basis as opposed to 30th of June as pointed out by the Auditor General. But important for us as a county is that we have checked and no money was lost in terms of who was supposed to receive the scholarships and bursaries.
Chair.
Yes, proceed.
I don't know. I know the governor wasn't there. We were all campaigning, but something is not adding up. And what